and welcome to another redo of my Civilization 6 tier list. This is coming post Rise and Fall patch, as you can see from the background opening cinematic that's playing currently. I've decided to make this one slightly different, as I do not want it to go on forever. It probably will be as long as the last one, with all things considered, me trying to fit everything into it. However, I won't be going into as much detail about the civs that haven't changed in my opinion between pre-Rise and Fall and post-Rise and Fall. Additionally, I have increased the amount of tiers to 6, just to fit in the whole 36 civs, as there are a lot more of them now. I'm not going to be giving these tiers names, again, like I did last time. I will just be calling them Tier 1 as the highest, and Tier 6 as the lowest. Now, I'm aware that I can't make all of the best observations, and I may miss things. In fact, I do miss things quite a lot of the time, so again, as I have said in previous videos, keep commenting down below, and maybe when there's a new expansion or enough civs or enough changed opinion for me, I will make another one of these. So if you think I've got something wrong, or you just want to try and persuade me to your opinion on a civ, or on elements of gameplay, or on what you think the future of this game should be, anything like that, just remember to comment down below, and I should be able to get back to you as soon as I can. Now obviously a lot of things have changed between this tier list and the last one. Even though we are considering Rise and Fall as the huge change, and of course it is the huge change, my opinions have changed elsewhere outside of the things that have come in Rise and Fall. A lot of civs have changed places and changed around and drastically moved through the tiers, even without having a direct Rise and Fall expansion influence. So again, I will be posting this one on Reddit, and if you disagree with any of my choices, I will definitely be willing to take it up for discussion. And obviously, again, when I do post it on Reddit, do a smaller, more summarized version of this tier list, just to keep it shorter. Finally, as this intro comes to an end, I do apologise in advance for any background noise that might be picked up, because my computer is still pretty much in pieces. But I hope you enjoy it anyways, and on to the video. Okay, so like I said, I will be having 6 tiers this time, and this is tier 6. These are the lowest of the low. One, as you can imagine, keeps their position in the lowest tier, and 2 new civs join them, which is probably going to be controversial, but I'll try my best to get across why I think that they are not great. So first off, again, is the Congo. I think you could all see this coming. I just have never really gone along with them, and people have suggested ways they can be good. I think Mont St. Mitchell was one idea, to just make the apostles that they get kill themselves to get relic slots, which, yes, with Congo's relic buff could be quite strong actually. They just seem too weak. There's no incentive to want to spread someone else's religion to help them win. I mean, sure, you could try and kill the person spreading religion to you, or beat them to space, or culturally dominate them. Or even now, switch the loyalty of their cities, but Congo doesn't get any bonuses towards that kind of stuff. They're just going to have bigger cities and apostles to chuck everywhere. Once you're trying to go to space, but someone spread their religion to you, they don't really have to worry about you going to space, because a religious victory is a little bit easier to achieve, unless someone's really trying to defend, or you get someone else to convert you to a different religion, but then you have the same problem. Again, the suggestion for making them better still stands, having the apostles have some sort of gift whenever you use them, whenever you spread someone else's religion with the apostles that you get as the Congo for free. There should be some bonus to give you an incentive to actually want to spread this religion. Now, this is one of the civs that's going to come across as completely controversial. This one has been moved around a lot, and as you can see, it's Gandhi's India. Since Chandragupta's India came out, I could tell that this guy was going to go down in the tier list. All he has going for him, really, is faith. I mean, his cities can grow a little, and he can defend himself with the elephants, but going on the aggressive is so much better with them, and that kind of messes with his peaceful agenda. He's just completely overshadowed, as the only thing he has religion, and someone with a decent amount of inquisitors, or even the Spanish that get extra inquisitor charges, could just hold him off forever, and he has no bonuses or anything to give him a chance at a different victory type. You can still try and go for a domination victory, or a science victory, or a culture victory, but there's no direct bonuses whatsoever, and his Varu can't be used, really, for that. As well as the other India. Chandragupta's India has really made me see the other side of this civ, and how strong it can really be. Finishing off this tier is Harald Hardrada leading Norway, and like I said before, he can be situationally very strong. However, it's only situational, and that's why I put him at a position 6 now, which is the lowest, and it's quite a jump for Norway, but I feel like I can justify it. His longboats were great at collecting coastal cities, either stealing the actual settlers or by taking the cities themselves. However, now in the new loyalty system, these faraway cities will just become free cities and go independent again. His berserkers, I thought were going to get a buff in Rise and Fall. I was quite hopeful, but they do seem to just kind of fade away into the background, and normal units are a lot stronger than them because of their lack in defense. They are still okay, so like I said, situationally, maybe if you quickly find a settler, they can be good, but they just kind of drop off and don't seem to have much impact. And then their stave church and their religious game just isn't enough to give them, you know, I put them up there with the rest of the strong faith-based civs. Okay, so these next ones are the tier 5s. These are ones that have either fallen down from kind of a middle position as of last time, or just escaped that bottom position. A lot of them are the same, but in this section we will see our first new civs from Rise and Fall. So the first civ here is France. I'm not sure if they've dropped down or moved up, because obviously I've added another individual tier. So they haven't really changed at all, and with people's comments about China trying to defend them not from being in the bottom tier last time, I've realised how strong the early game is, and that does go for other civs, as you will see later on. But Catherine gets no early game bonuses whatsoever, and like I said last time, she can be really strong at holding her high position if she can get to it, but that's the point, if she can get to it. She does now get the spy agency from the government plaza district, which is quite interesting, giving her even more spy bonuses, but I don't feel like it's enough. That's enough to keep her out of 6, because she's still a formidable civ if she can get lucky and stay ahead, but she has no direct way of doing so. So this civ just scrapes the 5th position on this tier list. Potential buff would be to possibly give her something towards the direction of these new alliances, or give her some incredibly strong militaristic and production bonuses to resemble the French Empire, but then at the same time give her some really strong negative loyalty bonuses to represent the French Revolution, to show the history of France and how it changed. Okay, so Arabia is led by Saladin, and he is another one of the civs that fit in this category that I'm personally not great at. Their last prophet initially, like I said before, I thought was insanely strong, but just seems to completely drop off because you won't get any of the good bonuses if you wait to get the last religion. They seem to be drawn between faith and science and then have an incredibly strong military unit, but they don't have any production bonuses to help them produce all of these things that they have to go for. And their faith bonus isn't great either, so I think a buff probably should be something like being able to purchase the Mamluks with faith and having an outright faith bonus, like something direct, or maybe some benefit to getting the last prophet. If you do get the last prophet, you get extra belief, or a unique bonus that nobody else could get. Just something like that to make their seemingly great ability just a little bit better. So you can probably tell by now, as this is my third tier list, that Egypt is going to be here again, a civ that I have never really got on with, which is a shame because in Civ 5 they were one of my favourites, but the direct bonus to Wonders was insanely strong, so fair enough. These guys have been altered slightly for the Rise and Fall. When Cleopatra trades with her allies, you get double alliance points. However, I still feel that this civ remains at the strength it was. It just stays where it is in Rise and Fall. It hasn't gone down because of Rise and Fall, and as you'll see later, some civs definitely have. I think Norway, I made that point on Norway. As the Rise and Fall system changes other civs around, but this civ just kind of stays where it is with a buff like that. I've just never really got along with these guys. I feel like they need a direct production boost, maybe like in the first two eras of the game, the Ancient era, or maybe just the Ancient era. In the Ancient era, maybe they get a plus 20% production to all buildings, or plus 30%, something pretty high, but just for the Ancient era to show off how insanely productive the Egyptians were at that early stage in the civilization. So some people are definitely going to rejoice knowing that this civ has made it out of that bottom tier position, as it was heavily argued that they weren't as bad as the Congo. Then again, some people stuck up for Congo as well. But I've seen that the early game can make these guys strong. However, I do still consider them a weaker civ. Not the weakest, a weaker civ. So maybe they're on the rise like certain other civs that we'll move on to. So again, a potential buff would be to completely overhaul the Great Walls. I want to make this point again because genuinely it's possibly the best thing I've ever thought of. The whole idea that mounted units or units of the cavalry class can't cross the wall, the Great Wall of China tiles, so that a melee or ranged or just not cavalry class unit has to move on to it and then pillage it. Maybe bombard units as well, they can't cross it, so you actually physically have to pillage the Great Wall of China to be able to cross it with these siege and cavalry class units. Apart from that, I'm not going to suggest his buff to production because I realise how strong these builders are now, getting that extra charge, and with the governor and the policy, you can really overhaul on production. That is the main reason that this civ has rose from the weakest position. They've definitely got better, but I feel like their tile improvement and unit are rendered completely obsolete still. Okay, so this is going to be one of the first incredibly controversial civs to put in this tier, as it is a new one and I haven't had 100% experience with it. I may be wrong, and obviously in the comments section you can persuade me otherwise. So first of all, they have their unique scout. This is a unit with the mobility of a scout and almost the strength of a warrior. Paired with a policy card that gives recon units faster promotions, this can reach 4+ promotions very easily and make an insanely strong recon ranger unit. Their unique building, the Maker Wap, can be useful to give extra production to tiles without hills for mines. The technological upgrades continue to upgrade it. When they research pottery, they gain a trader, and when using any trader, including that one, they create border tiles when they're within city range. And finally, his alliances allows shared vision, and trade routes receive additional yields. When playing as Poundmaker, you can use his gold, growth, and production to go for any victory type, as long as you utilize his early abilities as soon as possible. Like China, this guy gets a lot of early game bonuses, but has no direct victory condition to steer them towards, and for that reason, and considering the fact that there are a lot stronger civs now, I feel like out of these new ones, he seems to fall flat. So again, like the Kree, this one is going to be slightly controversial, but if you think you can convince me that it's not a tier 5 civ, feel free to do so. This civ works well around the coast, flatlands, rivers, and lakes. They get +2 adjacency bonuses for districts that are on a river, and can culture bomb when completing a harbour. Their naval prowess is developed by their... I'm not going to pronounce the name of that ship. This Renaissance-era range ship is overall stronger, but when attacking defended districts, it's even stronger, +7 with that. Wilhelmina empowers international trade and internal trade by adding loyalty per turn for internal and extra culture for international. Finally, they have their polder. This time, they have to build it on a coast or in a lake tile, with at least 3 adjacent flat tiles. This gives them an insane amount of gold, food, and production, as it upgrades throughout the eras. This civ reminds me of what I used to say about Australia, and Australia is higher than this civ, as this is the last one in tier 5. I just feel like they need way more starting conditions. The amount of conditions they need to be going their way for them to get everything. Like I said, they need flatlands, coast, rivers, and lake to be a very strong civ, but if you have all of that, this could easily be tier 1. So next up is the tier 4 civs. Now these civs probably were civs that would be in tier 3 last time, but because there's 36 civs now in the Rise and Fall expansion, I've split the tier 3 of last time, and probably that's what the tier 3 and 4 are now. So first up is Poland on the tier 4 section, and they're probably about the same place as they were before, but you know, I appreciate them a little more. They still need to focus heavily on culture, holy sites, military encampments, and commercial districts, but that is very similar to quite a few other civs now, as I've put Netherlands in the other tier 5 section of this list, because they need so much to go their way. Poland need a little less, it's just they need good enough production. Also, the wildcard slot allows them to go for an early great scientist or an early religion, which is perfect for them, whether they want to rush religion and get good benefits from that, or keep up on science while they do all this other stuff with their civ. There's trade routes where they're strong, their wind hussars seem a bit lacking. Maybe a flat production boost to them could help this civ, and I think that might be all. They're pretty strong, really, but not as strong as a lot of other civs. That's kind of why they hit the position for this sort of middle ground area. Maybe something like Civ 5's Poland, who did something about every time you move to a next era, you get a tech boost or something like that. And with the new era system coming in, I really think Poland could benefit from something like that to go with them. Now, this is the first time I've ever split the Greases in a tier list, so this is Pericles' Grease coming in at tier 4. His difference in the Greases is that he gets plus 5% culture from city-states that he's suzerain of. That may not look like it splits much from Gorgo, but I'll explain why Gorgo's at a higher position when I move on to her. Pericles is still great at the things that he was before. He hasn't changed in that sense. He's good at being friendly with city-states and defending his lands and getting ahead, using culture in the early game, and he can use his wildcard slot to either go incredibly scientific or for an early religion, just like I said with Poland. This civ could definitely be stronger compared to when I think of Greece, like I said last tier list about Rome, and how Rome is a great civ in this game, but the Roman Empire was potentially the greatest empire of all time, and Greece is like a close second, third, or at least top 5. So I feel that he could at least be a little stronger for the civ he's representing. Now, I remember a time when this civ was in my top tier, and that was my first tier list, and since then, people and personal play of the game has completely changed my mind. This civ is not as nearly as strong as I thought he was initially. I'm not saying he's weak by any matter, but he really relies on the jungle to get this adjacency bonus, and then he struggles for tile improvements, exactly like I said last time. He does now, as of Rise and Fall, also have a water park replacement, along with his carnival district replacement for the entertainment complex. That doesn't really change how I view them, it just changes how they fit into this Rise and Fall expansion pack, as they needed districts of both kinds just to keep them relevant. They can work well with their great person points, but the majority of jungles, not all of them, and vast jungled areas will be inland and not by the coasts. They won't be able to utilize their boats very well, and there's just a million directions this civ can go. There's not one specific thing, as you get great person points and adjacency bonuses from jungles, from pretty much everything, and you have to decide whether you want a faith game or a science game or a culture game early on in the game, and need to focus down on that specific thing. A buff to Brazil maybe could be like they had in Civ 5 with a unique infrastructure where they could place it on the rainforest to actually use them rather than cutting them down. Right, now these guys seem pretty low for how good I've seen them be in games. However, I have not played them Rise and Fall, which is what could completely change them. In Rise and Fall, you're going to see this as a recurring point, especially as I get up to the top. There are much more powerful domination-based civs, on top of the fact that because of loyalty now, domination is way more difficult and makes it near impossible as a victory condition, as a lot of your cities will become free cities. As well as that, with the new age bonus and how the ages work, in the ancient era the Aztecs are most likely to go to war, as that's when they're most powerful. However, when you're mass producing soldiers, I've found, playing as other civs, not the Aztecs yet, but playing as other civs, you tend to go into a dark age, and maybe that's what you want, and maybe you can capture cities while in the classical era to come out into a heroic age in the medieval era. However, if that's not what you want, and your cities, if you're going to be capturing cities and they're going to become disloyal and leave you anyway because you're in a dark age, because all you did was produce units and these eagle warriors in the early game, it's going to make you just a much weaker civ compared to these huge domination ones. And yes, they get amenities to keep their domination and city expansion up, but they don't have loyalty bonuses to go with it into this new expansion. Now, based on the point I said with Pericles' Greece about him representing a great empire, here is Rome in the tier 4 position. And I know everyone should be balanced, and I said this last time, but even though everything's supposed to be balanced, I think Rome should just be a tier 1 civ. I mean, come on, they were the greatest thing ever. But the point I'm making with putting them down this low is that since the Kaima, I think I'm pronouncing that right this time, came out, it just makes Roman baths look really weak. I mean, I love the Roman baths in real life, and I love Roman history in real life. However, the aqueducts that the Kaima get, and the benefits that they get for that, are better than the Roman baths. I don't think the Roman baths are as good. Their legionaries seem to not be as strong as they could be, as you can't mass produce them and have this huge empire. There's no production boost, so you can have a huge empire. The only thing that helps you create a Roman empire that's huge is the fact that your cities connect together with roads, meaning you can move around between your empire quicker. But there's nothing that actually helps you get that initial empire. You'll have more culture because of the monuments, but that's it. That's the only sort of production boost you're given. And sure, that will give you more loyalty instantly when you found these cities, giving you a good position in Rise and Fall. They're still not the Roman Empire. They're not the greatest civilization on this earth ever. So, these guys were in the second tier last time, and I feel like I've completely misjudged them. They're still very strong. I realised the benefits of mass-producing their unique archer to just get out there and use them as scouts, basically, and never having the need to use a scout. They are very strong, however, like a lot of these situational civs, like Brazil and Netherlands, and I've made this point so many times already, and I will continue to, they aren't guaranteed to be near the desert, and that's the only tile that their Nubian pyramids can be built on, the main standpoint of their civ. They're insanely strong. They're so strong, especially, like I said before, if you found new cities, the district cost goes up. But with the Nubian pyramids, it takes a flat percentage off them all. It takes the percentage off. So the bigger the cost, the more is going to come off that production cost. However, you're not always going to find desert, and you're not always going to be happy when you do find desert, especially if that's your capital city. The ideal location is if you can get a capital city founded away from the desert, but it has a desert tile next to it. If you just got one desert tile or something like that, just so you can build the Nubian pyramids next to your city. That's all you need, and that's all you want. Similar to Russia, these guys could have a buff that gives them yields from desert tiles. Now, this is a civ that I gave my first impressions of during my 2018 modded AI only. Their units gain 25% combat experience when traded a city with a governor. Additionally, his units get plus 10 combat strength versus civs in a golden age. Along with this, when you defeat an enemy unit in their borders, they lose 20 loyalty. Their unique unit, the Malon Rider, is stronger when 4 tiles within friendly territory, and can pillage for less movement. Finally, they have the Chemamal improvement. This provides 75% culture of the tile's appeal, and later on, tourism. It can be built on a tile with breathtaking or higher appeal. As Mapuche, you can use your military strength to secure as much land with appeal as you can to keep you steady. Then you rush the Eiffel Tower and put Chamals everywhere to go for a culture victory. Anyone that tries to stop you is risking their land and loyalty. I know I've probably pronounced a lot of that wrong, so correct me if you want to, but this civ seems quite strong militaristically and culturally. However, they don't seem to have the early game push towards culture to find these breathtaking spots. Eiffel Tower is a must to get extra culture and be able to place more of them. However, you don't get a production boost or anything like that, and it might be difficult to secure it. Next up is Georgia, and this is another civ to join the faith-based roster, but as this is the first faith-based civ that I'm considering as a pretty decent civ, I need to go back to a point that has been brought up a few times about religious civs. There was a comment previously on me putting Spain too high last time, stating that they have great bonuses for faith, but nothing to help them earn a great profit. So all those bonuses go to waste if you are beaten to a religion. However, hardly any civs can earn great profits faster. The only ones are those who go down mysticism with an early wildcard slot, like Pericles, Gorgo, and Jadwiga. The only other civ with a bonus is Russia, as their lava builds quicker. If we follow that logic, Spain is weak, and Gandhi is completely useless. It is also a very randomized system, as anyone can find a natural wonder and boost the Eureka to build holy sites quicker, and then it comes down to production. Okay, that's my mini rant over, so on to Georgia. When making a dedication in the Golden or Heroic Age, you earn the Normal Age bonus as well. Tamar's Kavesha unit is unlocked alongside the Pikeman, and is faster and stronger in hills. Her Tsike are Renaissance walls that give faith and later tourism. Finally, each envoy sent to a city-state with your religion counts as 2, as you earn 100% more faith 10 turns after declaring a protectorate war. If this civ gets a religion, if being the big point after my rant, it can be very strong, with many city-state allies. It is worth a Dark Age with this civ in the early game to go into a medieval Heroic Age, as you will almost guarantee a Heroic Age into a Golden Age with how many bonuses you get, and their first bonus that I mentioned. Religion is the obvious victory type, but others can work. Okay, so next up are the tier 3 civs. Like I said when talking about the tier 4 civs, this is kind of the middle ground of these civs. These are the kind of medium level civs that are pretty decent, but the ones in the 3 rise slightly higher than the ones in the 4. There's not much difference between 3 and 4, I'd say. It's close for them to be moved up or down, either way. So first up in this tier is Japan. Now, like I said, these guys could easily be a tier 4 civ, but rise slightly above the rest of them. They are pretty decent, as they work well early game, being near the coast or on the coast, both in water tiles and land tiles, with their military, getting that early game bonus that can really help you take out maybe coastal civs or city-states around up until the medieval period. I would say that kind of bonus drops off because it's a flat bonus, not a percentage. Their samurais are just what their Civ 5 ability used to be for all units, so I do feel like that's quite a bit weaker. But you want to play really compact as Japan, and if you can play super compact, that can work. And then with their factories going even further, it can all work together, but it's another one of these situational civs where you kind of want an area near the coast that's really compact. You're looking for an island similar to Japan in real life, or sort of like an archipelago kind of map, with sort of like an Indonesia-based start, but with a bit more land. Because you want that coast, but you want about 3 tiles wide, 4 tiles wide maybe, so you can build your districts as much as you can. Now, a civ that I know a lot of people will be happy to see higher in the 3rd position, which is pretty good considering he started at the bottom, is Samaria. Now, I've been convinced so many times over that his war carts are insanely strong, and I've used them for myself, and I know firsthand that they are, and with the Rise and Fall update, meaning that he gets extra alliance points for being at war with a common foe. I still feel that he needs, or could do with, to make him this really scary early game civ, like how strong I know a few of the domination civs coming up are. I feel like he's missing something, maybe like being able to capture barbarian units in the ancient era or in the classical era exclusively, just to, you know, keep it safe but also a little bit stronger, or maybe a few more yields to the Ziggurat, or however you pronounce that, and maybe upgrade it as the technology tree goes on, make it a little bit stronger than it is now. But this civ has definitely come a long way, and I'm happy to say that it's a pretty decent civ in my mind, considering it started right at the bottom. I mean, it's in 3rd place, like I said. That's a significant advance. Next up is Spain, and without going into too much detail, as I have already talked about it in depth, if you wonder why I'm putting a faith civ this high, see the point I made in Georgia. There will be timestamps in the description and should be on the video at this point. The update they had in Rise and Fall that if adjacent to a city, their mission improvement... Oh, and on a foreign continent, their mission improvement gives +2 loyalty per turn. That doesn't change much, it just keeps them relevant in Rise and Fall. I wouldn't move them up because of that, but I'm not going to move them down at the same time because of, like, that. Because a lot of civs have been destroyed by the loyalty system that I used to think were very good, Aztecs being a prime example of that. Spain are a pretty decent civ that can utilise all their religion bonuses and do Holy War and Spanish Inquisitions all the time and be amazing with it. Even going to war helps them convert cities. They can kill cities with a conquistador, which gets buffed anyway by religious units, and when they kill a city, or capture a city with a conquistador, the city follows Spain's majority religion. And that can just help you go for a religious victory, but also be a formidable force in the mid to late game. I think they could have a buff to boost their colonization ability, even though they have got this Rise and Fall update with loyalty now. I feel like they do need some sort of settler production, maybe in the Renaissance era. Next up is Gorgo leading Greece. Now, I said I had separated these when I did Pericles earlier. The difference between this is the extra culture from city-states that Pericles is going to get isn't that significant. It may help you later on in the game as it's a percentage-based buff, but still it's only 5%. However, Gorgo, in the early game, you can get culture by killing barbarians. And as there's not a policy-based system now, like there was in Civ 5, when you would get the honor policy and killing barbarians was okay to get a bit of culture, now you actually have a tech tree. So when you kill units for culture, you're actually advancing forward in the civic tree, I mean, not tech tree. You're advancing forward with civics. So if you're missing a little bit of culture to complete a civic, you can kill a unit and get that little bit of culture. So you can actually boost yourself. It's as if you were killing and getting science, which would be almost insane if you think of it back in Civ 5 when there was a tree. So it's as good as that. Obviously it drops off later in the game, but for the early game that can be insanely strong. And I've already talked about all her other abilities and why the wildcard slot is great when I talked about Pericles. So that's why I think this Civ and this leader slots into tier 3. Like I said, there's not much margin of difference between 3 and 4, and that's why Greece has been split this time. Now this Civ has dropped down a little bit. This is Victorious England. In the Rise and Fall patch, her naval dockyards, Royal Naval Dockyards, now give +4 loyalty, I think it is, 4 loyalty per turn, on a foreign continent. That does solidify her in Rise and Fall, and it's not because of the Rise and Fall expansion that I brought her down. It's like the point I mentioned with Spain. With the new loyalty system in, you kind of need early buildings quickly in foreign continents, and that's why I said for Spain, maybe a production to settlers buff. With England, I know a little more about their history, so possibly something like something with governments and a production boost on foreign cities, as they were able to set up their colonies so quickly. They were allowed to establish civilization when they colonized America very quickly after getting there, with like a government and a law system to the best of their ability in a foreign continent. So maybe some production boost, possibly relating to governors. In my opinion though, they do still remain a archaeological late game culture powerhouse. Now Australia hasn't exactly got better, but seeing, like I said before, civs that need way more situational starts like Netherlands, Australia has kind of solidified their position as a pretty decent civ. Now, as you're about to see, the colours in the video aren't going to match what they are now, because those colours have been changed twice. Australia is still a great civ, and I put Indonesia too high last time to kind of counteract these guys, because I thought Indonesia was so much better, but I didn't know Indonesia could only build the Kapung next to a sea resource. I thought it was in any coastal tile. That makes me reevaluate how strong Australia is with their coastal housing bonus straight from the start of the game. And Flatland isn't as hard to come across as I mentioned in the previous video, and you will find high appeal tiles no matter where you are in the world. So although it is quite situational, you can still pretty reliably find a lot of these things, and pastures are going to be able to be built everywhere for those culture bombs, with the outback stations next to them, and the fact that all you have to do is provoke someone to declare war on you to get 100% production boost. In an AI-only game, I could do that easily, but in a multiplayer game, even easier. Annoying someone to the point where they declare war on you is almost guaranteed to happen, so that 100% production boost is going to come pretty easily. Next up is Persia. So they've had a little rise and fall expansion change just to kind of keep them relevant. Any city with a garrison gets +5 loyalty per turn. Now this kind of solidifies them as being able to hit their immortals, use the surprise war, and like I mentioned, the update that allows them to choose to do a melee attack or a ranged attack, as of last time. Do a surprise war, take a few cities, possibly wipe out a civ, and then kind of turtle. Just turtle as a civ. Use their tile improvement and trade routes to just hide, and possibly use late game surprise wars once you are back on top again, because you will have to work to get on top, because there are a lot of strong civs with bonuses that I will be talking about probably in tier 2 and 1 that are just going to be insane. But Persia are definitely a top contender if you utilize surprise wars and the immortals properly, and then obviously with this new loyalty bonus you can turtle in those cities and keep them loyal to you. Even if you've taken a city that's far away from you, you can just use your garrison in it to keep it alive. Then we have Indonesia. Now, as I mentioned before, these guys were in a tier 2 position and have dropped down because I thought they were significantly stronger than Australia, but like I said, when doing Australia, I've realised now that they can only build the Kampung improvement when next to a bonus resource in the, well, any kind of resource in the water. I thought they could just put it on any coastal tile, and I've had a lot of game time with these guys throughout my Indonesia series. I'll probably also link that in this video, or put something on screen now, to that. But that series showed me how strong they were, but I did end up going for a religious victory. I felt like I could probably have done a domination victory as well, but I was just very good at taking things on the coast, and I struggled with my spawn. I mean, I can't blame the civ for that, but the spawn bias is sort of to blame. I struggled with my spawn because there just wasn't enough room. They kind of need a, like I said with Japan, that slightly wider island to work with, because I only had one tile and a line of districts to place, and I felt like I was in the movie Castaway screaming Wilson. I made that joke like way too many times throughout that series. But this is still a very formidable civ. If you can get the faith output, they can be insanely strong just buying ships with both gold and faith, as they will get good gold adjacency bonuses from the Triangle of Power, as I like to call it, whenever that's done. And if you can just insta-purchase an army, you'll be able to, well, navy, you can just wipe anyone out that you want. Okay, so I hope I'm pronouncing this right this time, as I have already before in this video when comparing them to Rome, which is the main reason that they are this high on this list, higher than Rome. The Kaimer, I think I did that right, they've jumped up significantly because over spending time playing with them, they're actually really strong. I mean, I just found them cool when I did the last tier list. I just said how awesome their elephants were, but it's a siege unit that doesn't have to set up to fire, so you can just move and fire, and an army like that is incredibly strong. Their faith game's very good, and like I said, their aqueduct bonuses are actually better than a Roman bath in my opinion, because of how strong the farm adjacencies around an aqueduct, and I think you get amenities and you get faith from certain things, and then they can get extra relics with a temple. They're not insanely strong, but they're just better than everything I've put in tier 4 in my opinion. They're quite a formidable civ, and can definitely hold their own up against anyone else in this bracket. Now, initially, this is a civ that I was quite skeptical about, with it being the second civ to have 2 leaders, and they went with India, and I thought maybe they'd go for a bigger civ like Britain or Rome or someone that could have real big changes. But I absolutely love this guy. He makes India not bad, and I don't know much about Indian history, but he's definitely saved it for me. Now, he has the same abilities as Gandhi, but does not get the faith from civs that are not at war with him, and doesn't make opponents suffer extra warriors. Instead, he focuses on the complete opposite, aggression. After the military training civic, you can declare war of territorial expansion, with all units getting +2 movement and +5 combat strength for 10 turns after you do that. For this, for me, it just fixes India. It's just the Varu, which once was a slow-moving defensive unit, now becomes an aggressive, fast-moving if you do a territorial war. It gets the extra movement, so it becomes like an elephant that can just leg it at you. And throughout the game, this territorial war lets you just sweep in with your soldiers and completely dominate. The extra movement and combat strength is insane, and this makes India a very formidable civ. This civ isn't my favourite, as their leader is Robert the Bruce, yet most of their bonuses come later in the game. I think Robert should have a unique leader unit, but that is my preference and doesn't determine how strong the civ is. Their Highlander is a ranger replacement that has extra strength anyway, but is buffed more on hills and wood tiles. Their golf course improvement can't be built in desert, and only one can be built per city. They give off 1 amenity, +2 gold, +1 appeal, +1 culture for adjacent city centre and entertainment complex. Then they have the ability to thrive in happiness. They get +5% science and production, and +1 great scientist and engineer point per turn when a city is happy, and all of that is doubled when a city is ecstatic. Finally, my problem with this civ is their final ability, the Early War of Liberation, giving +2 movement and 100% production. This bonus comes really early game, and the rest of their bonuses come late game. This is why Robert could work with a medieval unique unit. Even if the Highlander was changed to their iconic William Wallace Braveheart character, it would make a lot of sense and synergize much better with the War of Liberation. Besides the obvious dislike I have for that ability, Scotland is an incredibly strong civ that could easily be tier 1. However, their pitfall is, if you can force them to be unhappy by killing their units or pillaging their luxuries, you can stop them completely. This is where things start to change again a little. These civs could easily be considered tier 1 civs. However, apart from one of them, all of these civs are domination based. And in my opinion, obviously this is going to have a lot of conflict behind it and it's going to be very controversial. Domination is now the hardest victory type, with the new loyalty system in place and a lot of other easier ways to win and a lot of other stronger civs that could win other ways. Domination is incredibly difficult to win, in my opinion, in this Rise and Fall expansion. The more players that are in the game, the harder it's going to be. Obviously in a smaller game, these civs are pretty much gonna win if they hit their power spikes right. So first up is the anomaly in this tier 2 position. This is America, and they're the only non-domination based civ to be in this tier of the video. He's had a complete revamp, and I've been persuaded a lot with his combat bonus on his own continent in the early game, giving him a good head start, because I was saying he was lacking an ability to do well in the early game. However, his change is what has really persuaded me to put him this high. All of his diplomatic policy slots now become wildcard policy slots. You don't start with this because you don't initially have a diplomatic policy slot, so it's not as strong as Greece or Poland in the sense that you can get mysticism early and do that whole wildcard idea. However, it gets good once you get a government, as one, no matter which government you get, apart from one, I can't remember which one, you will get a diplomatic policy slot. However, if you reach Democracy, you will have 4 base wildcard slots. Wonders can buff this, so the Forbidden City adding 1 wildcard policy slot, and possibly the Patoala Palace giving another diplomatic one, and I'm not sure how the mechanic works if that diplomatic one then switches over as well. And then you have governors and great people to spend, so they can have a base 6 policies, and that can get even higher, and that's insanely strong with them all being wildcards. This gives him the opportunity to win culturally late game with the film studio easily. These next civs are all going to be domination based, like I said, and they could have been tier 1s in my opinion, maybe before Rise and Fall, but now with the loyalty based system it makes it difficult. Scythia is still an insanely strong civ and just can spam light cavalry, make millions of them, have a decent religion with faith and gold output because of her improvements, and just absolutely dominate the world in any way she wants, pretty much, with that early game advantage. However, one point I will make in Rise and Fall, on top of the whole loyalty idea, which obviously keeps her in a tier 2 position, is that Mongolia is a full heavy counter. I would say the only counter I've ever experienced in a game, like the only direct counter. I suppose you could have someone like Scotland who relies on happiness, and then the Aztecs to bring them down because they're such early war to destroy their happiness. But Scythia basically can't play into Mongolia, as Scythia want to make horses, and Mongolia capture horses, so you'd only be feeding them more soldiers, so you can't play Scythia as you'd want to. Now, this is another civ that falls into that domination category. He was always tier 1, but I feel like loyalty has brought him down to a solid tier 2. Alexander was absolutely insanely strong. He solves all the amenity problems, so that's why the Aztecs are so much lower on this list, because the Aztecs get some amenities to help them in war. This guy doesn't need amenities, and he's gonna get them anyway. He doesn't need them apart from city growth, because he doesn't get war weariness whatsoever. However, no matter how strong that made him in the past, now there is a system that he doesn't cheat, loyalty. So whereas he completely bypassed the war weariness, he has to pay for loyalty now. So as he expands out with his amazing empire, it really shows how his empire rose and fell in real life. How they all joined him as he conquered them, but a couple of turns, aka about 30 years later, as the scenario shows, he loses it all, again, to 3 city-states of Persia, and that's sort of what happens anyway. So this civ, yet insanely strong and can kill anyone it wants, and could easily stop the tier 1s again, like I've said before, is stopped by the new loyalty mechanic. Genghis Khan returns to Civ and is as scary as he was before. He can send trade routes to potential enemies to set up a trade post there, and that is instant. These trade posts provide diplomatic visibility for the Mongols, and they get +3 combat strength for each level of that visibility. The rest is then all about horses. They're building the Ordu, I think I'm pronouncing that right, is a stable that gives +1 production, +1 housing, +1 citizen slot, 1 great general point per turn, 25% XP for cavalry train there, and +1 movement for any that do. They then have their Kashig, a unique unit that acts in every way as a ranged unit, but has 4 movement, and gets the Order bonus, and can share movement in a formation, also with the ranged unit promotion tree. Finally, all cavalry get +3 combat strength and can capture other cavalry units. This civ is one to contend Alexander in military. You can trade to get ready, and then use Kashigs to move great generals and support units around. This gives you an easy route for domination, or puts you far enough ahead to win any victory. Again, like I said with Scythia, they are a very, very strong counter to Scythia, as Scythia always wants to do horses, and Mongolia can just get all their horses. Shaka returns to civilization again to lead the Zulu. This is another civ that focuses on domination in this expansion. They can train/form corps and armies earlier, at the mercenaries and nationalism civics respectively. Additionally, these corps and armies have +5 combat strength. They then get the Akanda, the unique encampment district replacement. It gives +1 great general point per turn, 1 housing, 1 production, 1 culture from specialists. It gets other standard encampment bonuses as well as being able to train corps and armies 25% faster. Then cities that have a garrison get +3 loyalty, +5 if that's a corps or an army. Units that conquer a city are upgraded to corps and armies, if the civics have previously been unlocked. Finally, to bring it all together, they again have the Impy unit. This pikeman replacement is faster to produce, costs less maintenance, gains XP faster, and can flank opponents with more combat strength. In a playthrough that I've got at the moment, I'm at Civ witnessing a war between Mongolia and the Zulu. The Zulu can't get out and Mongolia just can't get in either. This Civ goes from power spike to power spike, as when the Impys drop off, the corps and armies start to come, and you can go for any victory type you want with that early foothold. Now, like I've said with the previous tier lists I've done, by this point you can guess who the remaining 3 civs are. And there's not going to be a surprise factor for these guys. I'm just going to try my best to explain why I think they're the strongest. The first 2 civs will be returning members of the tier 1 section, which I'm sure you can tell by now, and with 1 new one at the end. Russia, there's not much to say about. I don't have enough time in this video to go over what I think about Russia. I think they're too overpowered because you don't need the million culture people that you get, the artists, the writers and the musicians from the Lavra district. You just don't need them, and they just clog up your lands. So they, like I said last time, need a debuff, but if you want to check that out, I will probably be linking the previous tier list in the description, because I don't have enough time to go through all of this. This civ is one of the best civs to play if you're new to the game and you just don't know what you're doing, because even if you get a tundra spawn, you're still sorted. In fact, in some cases, it's preferred. So Russia's insanely powerful, and like I said before, to the point where they could actually do with a debuff. Now this civ, again returning to the tier 1 position, is one of my favourites since being persuaded on the first tier list I ever did. He is just insanely strong. He has both early game bonuses in the fact that he can take city-states with a flat combat strength bonus to attacking them, and late game bonuses with insane production, submarine power, and you can build extra districts, and a military policy card, and the list just goes on how strong this guy is. He's probably a little harder to play than Russia, I would say, but he's still a great early civ if you're new to the game. A civ that you might want to, learn and get good with, and then take to professional tournaments because you beat everyone if you pick this guy. No. No, that's why there's a tier 1 position, because a lot of these could be still taken down, no matter how strong I regard them. Like I said with the tier 2s, a lot of them could be killed by this guy. But Germany... tier 2s could kill this guy. Germany is just very, very strong, and their production just goes through the roof to give you any victory type you like, but space is pretty easy with this guy. Though there have been civs before, like Arabia and now Scotland with science, Korea in Rise and Fall reminds me of the Mayans, Babylonians and Koreans back in Civ 5, with just an insane prowess for science. Their unique unit, the Hawacha, is a replacement for the field gun, but is unlocked earlier and has a higher range strength. However, they can't move and attack. You can imagine everything else is based on science and their unique Seiwan district. This district gets +4 science but loses science for every adjacent district. It also gives +2 science for specialists and 1 great scientist point per turn. They then get science from mines and food from farms if they are adjacent to this Seiwan. Finally, cities with governors get +10% science and 10% culture. The strategy here is to isolate the Seiwan, surrounding it with mines and farms, and putting other districts elsewhere. As you will usually be ahead, you can use the Hawacha that can't move and attack in your cities and stay on the defense. Using the science that you have, you can rush ahead with tourism, use production to go to space, or kill everyone with your advanced army. I haven't played them much, but they seem immensely strong. Thank you very much for watching through this tier list, and I know I'm going to have got something wrong or something that might not fit your opinion, because an opinion is literally the most controversial thing that exists on this planet. So any opinions that you have, I would love to hear like I have before. Just comment down below in a tier list, or comment on it when I post it on Reddit, which hopefully will be today. And thank you guys so much for watching again. I'm glad that I finally got this tier list out. If across the next year or so they release a singular civ, I might release a video following it that maybe just reviews that civ and where I would put them at the moment, because if they release a singular civ like they have before, I'm not going to go ahead and rewrite this tier list. It's only if they've added a few or a whole new expansion. But thank you again so much for watching. I got so much good feedback from the last 2 tier lists that I did, and yeah, thank you for your support, guys. I'll see you in whatever's next to come.